What's going down, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Commander Ad Populum. Commander for the people, by the people, for the people. This is episode 25. My name is Ryan. Welcome back. If you're returning, welcome to Commander Ad Populum. If this is your first episode, this week we're kicking off a two-part interview. I know a lot of people do like the interview style shows. If that's you, you're in for a good one because we've got some pretty in-depth Magic conversation to talk about with my guest. So I'm happy I can bring it to you this week and next week. But before we get too much into that, we've got some official podcast business first. Of course, every week, Commander Ad Populum is brought to you by FusionGamingOnline.com for all of your Magic and gaming needs. You can find Commander Ad Populum along with all of Fusion Gaming's other sponsored content on themanabase.com. I'd very much appreciate if you checked me out there because it's a great place to be. After that, of course, Commander Ad Populum is brought to you by all of the generous and wonderful patrons. We're building an excellent community over on patreon.com/cadpopcast. All of my content is there. Of course, links to the Facebook page and the Twitter page are there as well at cadpopcast and Commander Ad Populum on Facebook. One of the benefits to becoming a patron supporter is the Commander Ad Populum Discord channel where we are starting to very much feel like a family, and we've got a wellness channel there that we help each other out and talk about, just being healthy, getting fit, all that kind of stuff that sometimes gets missed in the Magic community, I feel like. So if you're into any of that, we've got people that have, started new workout plans or started looking for new jobs and want encouragement or what have you. And we just kind of talk about that kind of stuff and make sure everybody feels included and is getting looked after. Wonderful place. I'm happy that it's kind of grown into that because that was one of the goals for the channel was to really inspire people to become better versions of themselves. So that's really awesome for me to be part of that or be the catalyst to that in other people's lives. If that's you, great job. I'm so happy that we could have that experience or go through that journey together because every day and every week that I'm putting shows together and producing content, I feel like that's me. I'm growing and I'm learning to be more efficient or more organized or whatever it is, right? So huge thank you to all of the patrons. New patron shout out this week, Chris Fitzgerald. Welcome along, newest member of the Commander Ad Populum Patreon Discord community. Great to have you. Welcome. Moving on a little bit, you can of course find episode 25, part 1 and part 2, Twitter and Facebook threads. They'll be on the social media channels, so if you do have any comments, as some people do when we do these interview-style shows, feel free to comment. If you have anything a little bit more long-form or private that you'd like to discuss or comment on, feel free, cadpopcast@gmail.com, to send me an email. I know on previous interview-style shows, I've gotten a lot of more private messages, so that avenue is available for people as well. That all being said, I want to get right into it. Today we're talking a little bit about representation in Magic. And that is a very broad and open-ended term, but I think that I do have the best guest in the Magic community to talk about this. I had several people in mind for this type of interview and for the types of questions that I had, but I think I managed to find the best person for this conversation. I'm so excited to bring this to you because it was very educational for me. And of course, whenever I'm learning something, I just assume that everybody else wants to know it. So we're going to get right to it right after this. Okay, everybody, we are back, and I am here with my very special guest today, the perfect guest for this topic, and we were joking before the show, not my second choice, not my third, not my fourth choice, my first choice, the best person for this topic. Please introduce yourself, Loreley Weisel.
Hi, I'm Loreley. I am a big-time Vorthos in the Magic community, been playing for, almost 17 years now. You might know me from the Vorthos Cast, where me and 4 of my friends do a podcast about all kinds of Vorthos things. I am also a contractor with Wizards of the Coast, so I write creative text for the tabletop game. That's so names and flavor text. And then I am also the person who writes the Planeswalker dialogue for MTG Arena. So if you play the digital version of the game and play Planeswalkers and hear their voice lines, everything from War of the Spark forward is my stuff.
That is so cool. That is so cool. We actually got a real live Wizards of the Coast employee. I feel like I should trap you and never let you go.
Technically not a Wizards employee. I am a freelancer, so I don't actually live or work in Seattle, but I get to work from home, which is nice.
It's the best. And you know what? That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Mm-hmm. The only set I have written for that's public right now is Modern Horizons. So in general, if y'all enjoyed the names and flavor text from that set, I was on that team. That was a lot of fun. That was a very humorous set. We had a lot of freedom to do a lot of jokes. There's serious pieces, but I think the jokes in that set are especially delightful. We'll see a lot more of my work next year, though.
Yeah, tons of funny throwbacks and cool old school stuff that somebody that has played as long as we have might pick up on, but newer players might not.
Oh yeah, we had a lot of freedom to do a lot of deep cuts. We had Ethan Fleischer, designer at WotC, who was one of the design leads for the set, was also on the creative text team. So we had a lot of fun. We're both big time Vorthoses into a lot of the old school stuff. We got a lot of old references into the set. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, and speaking of deep cuts and throwbacks to story, I want to say about a month ago on the Vorthos Cast, you guys did I think it was a 3-part summary of the Weatherlight Saga.
We sure did.
And I loved it. It was great. I'll link to it in the show notes. Several times in those 3 episodes, it was brought up about, I don't know how to phrase it correctly, how Magic story used to be versus how it is now, specifically with, I don't know what better way to say it. You're probably far more articulate than I am when it comes to this. The macho male figure or the suppressed female figure, that's what I'd like to talk to you about. That's why I have you on. What your work is and what you advocate for is the reason that you're the perfect guest to answer these questions for myself. So maybe just give the listeners a little bit of a background as to what I'm talking about when I say all of that.
Yeah, so one of the things that I harp on the Weatherlight Saga for very loudly, because it is a time period where story was very important to Magic. It was on personally too many of the cards. That's a whole separate rant. But and story was very upfront. A lot of the novels that people really enjoyed were in that era, and it was the first time Magic really did a big unified story arc over multiple blocks. So that was from.
So hold on, I'll stop you just real quick to for anybody who's newer, it would be the functional equivalent of when the Gatewatch started to when War of the Spark finished, right?
Yeah, it was about a 4-year time frame. So Tempest block, technically Urza Saga block, then Mercadian Mass block, then Invasion block. So it was a 4-year story arc. I guess technically had a little prologue comic that came out during Weatherlight right before Tempest, but yeah, it was a similar time frame to what this Gatewatch arc has been the last 4 years.
Yeah, so if you were a Magic player in the late 90s and 2000, this would be your equivalent of the Gatewatch story arc. So if you were invested in that now, or if that is contemporary to you, the Magic player now, this is contemporary to somebody like myself who started playing in 98, 99.
Yep. It was the same kind of thing. So Magic got a bunch of non-Planeswalkers together because Planeswalkers are too powerful to show on cards, which is the rationale they used. So very inspired by Star Trek and shows in that genre. We had the crew of the Weatherlight, the skyship we just saw in Dominaria again. It's now rebuilt, and fighting against the Phyrexians. So during that arc, a lot of women die. And a lot of men die too, but the men get to die doing things, and the women get to die to make the men look better. This is a problem through a lot of sci-fi and fantasy, especially in the 90s and the early 2000s, and it's commonly known as fridging a character, because you just kind of put them on ice to make them to make them out of the story and make the dudes look good. So the Weatherlight Saga is guilty of this for almost every single female character it introduces. So Miri dies. Well, Miri's kind of fridged. She gets killed by Krovac. She was a cat warrior who had a crush on Gerard, and Gerard just wanted to be friends because Gerard is kind of the
cool dude of the story.
Yeah, he's the action hero created by Urza through eugenics. So we really shouldn't talk about him like he's a good guy. Urza's a bad person.
Urza or Gerard, yeah. Urza, I know, is everybody has mixed feelings on him because he is, to a lot of people, their favorite and most memorable character in the entire Magic universe. The entire everything, right?
He has. It's a lot of names.
And I'm saying that because like Urza was the man when I used to read the novels. When I played the game, he was the leader of the coalition that was going to defeat the Phyrexians. Like you can hear it in my voice, and it's hard for you to maybe find the words to not talk me off the Urza ledge. You know what I mean?
No, it's he was very much the main character of Magic for many years. One of Magic's original characters. His story and his war with his brother told in Antiquities, one of the earliest sets. One of the few characters to have been name dropped in the original Magic printing in Alpha.
That's right.
So starting with
total jerk though.
Oh, he's no better than Yawgmoth. If it wasn't for Phyrexia, Urza would absolutely be considered the villain of the time.
Yeah.
Bad person. So Miri dies, Selenia dies for Krovax. Sisse gets kidnapped despite the fact that she's the badass captain of the Weatherlight.
She goes from like prominent female figure to damsel in distress type character.
Yeah, and then back again. Sisse is pretty much, her and Freyalise are the two women who make it out of that entire saga okay. Let's see, two planeswalkers get fridged, Christina of the Woods and Daria, just so that Urza had a reason to kill Teversat to power these nuclear bombs. It's a whole thing. Hannah dies for no reason other than to be used as a bargaining chip by Yawgmoth to trick Gerard into fighting Urza. It's like none of the women get to do anything. And it
sounds like a bunch of them were used to some end of some male or male-esque character.
Right. And so like even smaller characters. So there's Urza's partner who helped run the Tolarian Academy, Baron. His wife Rain dies in the Prophecy story. And as far as I can tell, the only reason she dies and then Hannah, his daughter, dies is so that Baron can get really sad and then blow him and Talaria up and kill a bunch of Phyrexians.
That's right, and that's pictured on the card Obliterate from Invasion.
Sure is. That's right. Christina of the Woods isn't even on a single piece of card art in the entire Invasion block, despite being one of the 9 Titans. So
yeah,
I don't think she's even named.
I don't actually think that she is either.
Now
that I'm thinking about like the entire Invasion block, like I'm putting together that collection that set of cards as I'm sorting my collection. I don't think she's on anything.
Yeah, I don't think she's in any flavor text. I know Daria is in one card art, and I think in that card's flavor text, and that's it. There's a lot of Windgrace though, and a lot of Taste.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and a lot of Urza.
Without getting into too much of the story, a few minutes ago you mentioned it was prominent in, I think you said sci-fi. I'm going to lump fantasy in there as well in the 80s and 90s to suppress the female character or fridge them, as you say. Is this because traditionally fantasy and sci-fi has been consumed primarily by men? Do you think that's why this is?
Traditionally, it hasn't been.
Okay.
There was a push. So if you kind of want to know how we can use video games as a good microcosm of this phenomenon, because it's really well illustrated as a younger industry, especially through marketing towards children. So in the 70s and 80s, video games were marketed to everyone. There was a thing for all kids to do. Late 80s, early 90s, video games start getting marketed specifically for boys, for little boys, and not little girls. So this kind of girls don't play video games attitude that we see really manifested in the last 15 years through a lot of really toxic behaviors in video game communities. That has its origins in a marketing trend that kind of separated binary gender activities for kids in the early 90s. So people forget one of Europe's original sci-fi stories, Frankenstein, is written by a woman who wrote it because she was angry about how terrible all the men around her were at writing. So she was like, hey, Mary Shelley is going to write a book now that's better than everybody else's.
I was going to say that's Mary Shelley in 1888.
Oh, earlier.
Roughly?
She was earlier in the 1800s. She was part of a wave of romanticism in British literature. She is definitely one of the people on the leading edge of a trend that would continue through Victorian British fiction. Of science fiction, and she's really one of the galvanizing forces, galvanizing literally and figuratively for what happens in the book, behind the British aristocratic elite, the very people doing early work in like thermodynamics and physics are the people who are conversing with these authors and sometimes writing it themselves. It's that's a whole fascinating subtopic that I actually spent a lot of...
That actually does sound very interesting to me personally.
Yeah, if you want to read a book about it, there's a book called Thermopoetics by Dr. Barry Gold, who was one of my professors in college. One of the best courses I took was all about the interplay between in the late 1800s between the way early British physicists were talking about science and predicting the end of the world, because it's a whole thing. Just go read the book. It's interesting stuff. So
okay.
I guess working back. So in the late 80s, early 90s, kind of nerddom got really segregated along gender lines, along binary gender lines, and we're now.
Hold on, I'll stop you again there. What you mean by that is, along binary gender lines, what you mean is there was certain toys and things for girls and certain toys and things and activities for boys,
yes.
Correct?
Yeah, so we'll reach back into my childhood. So there was a British toy company who was making a just little portable environmental toys with little figurines, and rather than have a line that could be sold to all kids, they broke it up between Polly Pocket and Mighty Max. So if you remember those two things, the toys...
100%. My sister had one of them and I had the other one.
The toys are functionally exactly the same, but one of them is quote-unquote boy stuff and the other is quote-unquote girl stuff. But the way the toys function is literally the same. It is gendered and marketed separately for no other reason other than to be gendered and marketed separately. So that is something that happened in a lot of industries. So that is a more recent thing. So when we talk about female characters in sci-fi fantasy stories getting fridged in service of furthering a male narrative, that's something that has existed for a long time for lots of patriarchal reasons. But it's not something that entirely grows out of demographics of who is consuming those things, because women haven't stopped being nerds ever. It's just whether or not they've been marketed towards. And we're finally seeing a lot of big swings back to a lot of gender parity, which is great.
The women are taking back nerdhood, as it were.
It was never not theirs. Voices are being...
I like that answer. That's definitely a good answer. I like that.
Voices are becoming more prominent and being listened to, which is good. We wouldn't have... I mean, just look at children's television and things that are happening. Rebecca Sugar's work with coming out of Adventure Time and then doing Steven Universe. And then, I don't know, I feel bad because I'm blanking on her name, who's doing the Netflix revitalization of She-Ra, bringing all kinds of female energy to these programming to broaden our definition of diversity. A lot of queer stuff, which is phenomenal for me as a queer trans woman to see. Like, it is, we're living in a good time where things are trending upwards. So it's nice.
Yeah, I agree. I want to go back just a minute there ago when I said women are taking it back. You said that it was never not theirs.
Mm-hmm.
From somebody who isn't involved in, I'm going to call it nerd culture. That's what I've called it on Commander Ad Populum for a few weeks now that I've been really thinking about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
From somebody who's not involved in nerd culture outside of the Magic the Gathering universe, I'm seeing all of these more prominent female voices on social media, on the, air quotes, pro scene, in Wizards of the Coast, directly on my YouTube screen, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. In general, because I know that there's an extreme response in both directions, in general, what is the male response to all of this? Because it's become noticeably more prominent for me, who just I'm just a dude. Like, sure, I create content and I'm out there on the internet, but like, I'm not really out there in nerd culture, pop culture. I just see Magic stuff. Mm-hmm. So what is the response to it all?
It's mostly positive. So the thing with the internet is that it amplifies extreme voices. So it being loud and being consistently loud are things that are rewarded online. So the fools who cry and whine because Captain Marvel had a really gay haircut in Endgame, those people there are not that many people like that out there. They are very loud and they're very angry, and really they don't have as much power as they think either. Captain Marvel still made a ton of money. Wonder Woman made a ton of money.
You had me at gay haircut. I'm so naive to this kind of thing, and I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I feel like haircuts shouldn't be gay, but maybe there are such things as gay haircuts that I'm naive to. What? Fill me in.
Well, so I will quell your concerns. It's you being unaware of this is neither a good thing nor a bad thing. It's the way you are, the way culture works, the way subgroups work, minority groups and majority groups. So any subculture is going to develop its own cultural trends. And for queer culture, hair is a big thing right now. I mean, it always has been, but it's something that is a very easy way to visually code things, especially in media, since we're talking about representation in media.
Okay, hold on. Okay, so if I was going to become more educated in queer culture, it would behoove me to learn different types of hair. Sorry, we're getting off top of Magic, but I want to know about this culture. Because it's very fascinating to me, because I don't want to be the guy that puts his foot in his mouth. You know what I mean?
Well, so
maybe I'm doing that right now.
Maybe a little bit. It's fine. So it's tricky because like things are really complicated, and there's so we can talk about like intersectionality. So there are lots of different ways to be part of a minority culture. So I am trans. So I am part of a trans subculture. I am also I'm also a lesbian, so I am part of a gay subculture, and those intersect in different ways. I am also white, so I am part of white culture, and that intersects with my queerness and my transness in ways where that would be different for example, a black trans woman or a white trans man.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
So a lot of the way these subcultures interact are going to create their own blends of things that are going to be really invisible to, frankly, people like you. And really, all if you want to start understanding, just be quiet and watch and listen. That is the absolute best first step you can do. Yeah. So I mean, having me,
don't be one of those loud voices that cares XYZ thing happened on a Marvel movie.
Yeah, absolutely not. Just enjoy the Marvel movies. They're fun. But yeah, which, is a good thing to mention. So there's a character, Valkyrie, who is going to be Marvel's first out queer superhero. She is currently the king of Asgard because Thor didn't want it. And Thor Love and Thunder is going to partially involve looking for her queen. So we get to have space lesbians. So that's nice. That's goals.
Oh, wow, that's actually cool.
Yeah. And magic is getting there too. If we can talk a little bit about magic, since this is a magic podcast.
Yeah, this is a magic podcast, exactly. So, okay, 180 degrees. We talked about how all of the different subcultures of everything, for lack of a better term, fit together and blend together, and it creates some form of mesh in real life and on the internet. Mm-hmm. Your role at Wizards of the Coast allows you to convey some of this, and I've heard it in your speech on the Vorthos Cast. I'm interested to know about representation in contemporary Magic story now, and moving forward, how you think that's trending, and moving forward, how you hope to influence that. So that's a lot to unpack but
that's good.
I think you can.
Yeah, those are good questions. I think the first thing I'll answer is that because I am not on the world building team, I'm not a WotC employee, so a lot of the decisions and directions, I don't get to decide representation things.
That's right, but you still have a free lance to write things with that they can approve or disapprove, right?
Yes and no. So largely what I'm...
Sorry, I know that you can't say a lot. I'm sorry, I'm asking a little bit prying questions, but if you can't answer, just please don't.
Yeah, largely what I'm doing is working as a conduit of what exists. Where I have really the most freedom to write is on Arena, when it comes to expressing the Planeswalkers as characters. So personally, I am not in a place where I'm going to try to write new canon or anything. That's not the job. That's not my role. That's not my responsibility. So I'm more of a conduit of existing character decisions. So what that translates to is, if we can continue talking about queerness, we have some queer Planeswalkers. So Ral Zarek is currently in a relationship with Tomek Vrona.
Yeah, and that was first demonstrated in card form on Ral holding a white scarf and Tomek holding a red scarf.
So
in the War of the Spark cards.
Yeah, so it's Ral's Planeswalker card in Guilds of Ravnica, and then Tomek's.
Oh yeah, That's what it is.
And then Tomek's and War of the Spark. So they have a swatch of each other's clothing tied around their wrists, which is really wholesome. And so if you're reading the Django Wexler stories that are currently being emailed from Random House, Ral is one of the main characters in that, and Tomek has a lot of screen time, and they get to be gay and smoochy, and it's really wholesome. They have a beautiful relationship that's they have to meet in secret because they are both high-ranking guild members, and they don't want people to think that the guilds are conspiring with each other. They just want to be happy and in love, in peace. So it's almost a Romeo and Juliet kind of thing.
I was just gonna say, is that representation for anything else in the real world where two gay people have to meet in secret?
Nope, that was all designed and developed for the guilds thing. Ravnica has, Doug Beyer made a statement about this a couple of months back. Ravnica has no problem with homosexuality. It's literally just that they are... So Ral is currently acting guildmaster of the Izzet League, and Tomek is the advocist in training. So he's a lawyer who works for Teysa Karlov, who is the most powerful oligarch in the Orzhov. So it would be like... I don't know, it'd be like the president of the United States dating the prime minister of Canada.
Yeah, that'd be the day. Okay, that ends the first half of our interview with Loreley. I hope everybody's enjoying it so far. I know that I learned a ton, like I said at the top of the show. We're going to be back next week to conclude the rest of the interview, wrap everything up, put a bow on it, Before we get out of here, though, one last great big shout out and thank you to FusionGamingOnline.com for all of your Magic and gaming needs. I very much appreciate their support, and I would very much appreciate if anybody checked them out, supported them. That all helps me out a ton. Second big thank you, all the patrons. You guys make it all possible for me as well. I wouldn't be able to do it without you, and I wouldn't be able to feel the same sense of community and well-being and gratitude if it wasn't for all the patrons. Very much appreciate all of you. So that's it for this week, everybody. I'll see you next Wednesday.